Welcome in. It's another edition of the Beast of the East podcast here on the Believe Podcast Network and Willis Digital Media. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Joining me, the man, the myth, and the legend. You're damn right. It's Steve Willis.
That's
Steve,
right. I'm pinch hitting for Craig and going to try to fill his shoes, so to speak, and talk a little bit about Eastern Division football. And perhaps we could have some fun and talk a little expansion. There's a lot of stuff we can do tonight.
wait, we haven't talked expansion in a long time.
No, not at all. This is a completely new thing for us.
Wait, the SEC's expanding? When did we add Arkansas? No, I'm just kidding.
1992, actually. And which, to be honest, we could talk about this just starting out a little bit. But when South Carolina and Arkansas came in, the way that they set that up, they probably did the most actual damage to traditional rivalries and things like that. Everybody talks like this Texas and Oklahoma move is all about the money, but that 1992 move was completely bungled by leadership, and you lost games like Georgia, Alabama, Auburn and Florida, Auburn and Tennessee. Arkansas had no real rivalry. They tried to shoehorn the LSU game in. It's an interesting scenario, but I look back 30 years ago at the bungling, and this could be a chance to make it right with all those rivalries coming back, perhaps at only at the expense of Alabama and LSU.
Wow. Yeah, it's crazy, man. This whole expansion thing is getting crazy. But we are presented by BetOnline.ag. The summer is well, it's coming to a close, I should say. I say summer's coming to a close, not officially. That ends in September, but I consider the start of school the end of summer. So the Olympics are still going on. There's still plenty of good odds, but you can. You have live bets during games, futures. Who do you think will win a championship? Bet Online has all the latest odds, news, and information for all your online sports betting needs. Steve, if you like the online casino, they have just about any game you could ever play. Do you like casinos?
I like casinos. I like winning at casinos too.
What's your game of choice?
I generally like to play the slots and occasionally some blackjack.
Well, they have daily blackjack tournaments, and they have all the slot machines you could ever want. So, Steve, you know what you should do, and what all of our listeners should do is go to the website today or use your mobile device. It really doesn't matter to join and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. So before that next big game, head on over to Bet Online and start playing today. Bet Online, your online sportsbook expert. Steve, I was looking at some of the odds. They already have early odds for the 2021-2022 NBA championship. The Lakers are 3-1 odds. They are the odds-on favorite. Your Phoenix Suns are 14-1, and Jeb's Golden State Warriors are 9-1.
All right.
So,
Also, if the Lakers get Russell Westbrook, it's basically over anyway, right?
yeah, and I think they got him.
Yeah, they got him. That's done deal now. I just
Yeah, I
saw
believe so.
a couple of tweets come through the timeline that he was looking to go to LA.
Yeah. So we should change this to best of the Western Conference.
Yeah,
So
of the NBA.
yeah, of the NBA.
Yeah,
That's your NBA news for today.
yeah.
Got an action packed show here on Beast of the East. Thank you for filling in. Craig has succumbed to that summer cold deal that's going on. That was a delayed reaction from everybody masking up this winter. So the cold just kind of sat back and lurked, and then now is attacking everybody. So I feel like it's the middle of January right now, the way my sinuses feel. So it's fun nonetheless. Got a good practice in today too as well. But lots of storylines, Steve. We haven't talked expansion in a while. Apparently there's some news there.
Yeah, seriously.
There's some rumors happening that the SEC might not be done. Have you heard about this Clemson and Florida State deal?
I am, and I on that story. I'm waiting to see if any other source picks it up because with Texas and Oklahoma, reporters were falling all over themselves to add to the story.
Yeah.
So I usually listen for 2 or 3 sources on expansion before I start to take it seriously. I think it's up to about 2 right now, 1.5 maybe, but it's kind of interesting. They're not going to admit reaching out. Clemson and Florida State are not going to admit to anybody. They're going to claim the story is false. and
Of
everything's
course.
going on. Because in going to the SEC would put the ACC in a little bit of peril themselves. So it will be interesting to see exactly how this shapes up down the line and what actually happens because Clemson and Florida State are great fits for the SEC. Florida State has been for 25, 30 years at this point. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'd like to see both of those teams come in. Although if they come in, you don't move Alabama and Auburn over, or you might move just Missouri over, and those two go in, and the rivalry problem still exists.
Yeah. I mean, I think it, anytime you add and add and add and add and add, there's always going to be some rivalries that get disrupted. I mean, if you take away permanent matchups, there's going to be some rivalries that get disrupted and not played every single year. So, to me, I don't think that really matters at this point. I think you just need to get the best product you can possibly get on the field and across the TV screens and just worry about the other stuff later. And I think it would be a great move. Let's just say hypothetically it does happen. Honestly, I would love that. I would love to see Florida State in the SEC. I would love to see what they could do year in and year out against Florida if they do, in fact, stick with the divisions. You think they would have to go with pods at that point, even though I'm not really in favor of the pods. I think if they got to 18 teams, they would almost have to. But
There's no
um,
way to do it. The only way you can do pods if they're equally distributed. So it's 16 and then 20 is the magic number. So if Florida State and Clemson could truly come in, the only solution is pods, and you've got to get to 20. So then you're looking for North Carolina, you're looking at Virginia or Virginia Tech and North Carolina State, somewhere in that footprint to fill in this gap, and you can have 4 or 5 team pods, and let's go.
let's just go coast to coast and get Arizona State and or no, get the UCLA and USC and just let's just cover all time zones here.
Man, people make that joke all the time, but I remember a couple of years ago, Ole Miss had a road game at Cal, and that damn thing almost kicked off at 11 o'clock at night. And you went to bed at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I just the fan in me, I almost fell asleep twice in the middle of the game. Ole Miss ended up losing that game because of the Phil Longo experience, and
I remember that.
it was just a pain. So that is what's giving me pause when it comes to like USC and UCLA coming in because that Western time zone, we just don't want any of it. Now the Mountain time zone we could get away with if Colorado for some reason wanted to go or
Yeah, come on, Buffs.
yeah, something like that. You could do 1 hour both ways. The worst one would be like South Carolina going to Colorado, and that's a 2 hour time shift. But that third hour, that's just a massive West Coast. Because if you're playing Pac 12 after dark, it's no joke if it's your team. It's fun to watch when somebody else's team is playing. It's
What what
great.
what about Pac-12 at brunch?
Yeah, like if you have a game on the West Coast and all of a sudden it's a 11 o'clock kickoff Central, that's a 9 o'clock West Coast kickoff. You
Yeah,
think that would be a
USC and
desirable thing?
USC and USC and Arizona State tried that this past season. I don't know if you watched that game. It was Pac-12 at brunch, but it was pretty funny. It was pretty good. It was kind of a very sloppy game. It took them a while to wake up. But back to the topic at hand, Clemson and Florida State.
Mm-hmm.
I think Florida State's a rebuilding program right now. Surprising to say, but they're gonna get it right under Norvell. I think eventually, and I think he's the right choice. But that'd be cool. Like you would get the two of the big three in Florida in the conference. You would get South Carolina and Clemson together in the same conference. And of course, Georgia and Clemson in the '80s had a pretty decent rivalry. So you renew that one possibly
Mm-hmm.
as an Eastern Division opponent. A lot of old school Georgia fans will tell you that Clemson is one of the bigger rivals, but that would be cool. That would be I would welcome that, and then possibly welcome a tenth and or a ninth and 10th team, I should say, in there, and probably go after North Carolina for basketball and academics, and go after like Virginia or Virginia Tech for that DC market, and let's just cover let's just blanket the entire Southeast. Let the other ACC teams go to the American. Screw them. and go from there.
Well, at that point, if Clemson and Florida State left, you still would have Miami in that league. You still would have North Carolina. You still would have some blue bloods potentially. So you might see a situation where they peel for the Big 12 instead of the American. They become the fishing conference, so to speak, rather than the team that we're just trying to get them all down in the G5 or create some kind of hybrid with the Power Six or whatever they called it. And you could take something like that and rebuild a reasonable facsimile of what's happening now. So you're looking at a 5-team power conference or autonomous 5 or however you want to put it. And a lot of the same plans could still happen. Now, if the Big 12 folds and just goes to the AAC, now all of a sudden you have a Power 4. There's no way for the American to move up into the power conferences. They're going to need help from somebody, I think.
They would need to merge probably with the ACC or the Pac-12. So all those Big 12 schools are going to have to go somewhere. Um, I think honestly the ACC would go after Memphis. They'd probably go after Memphis and UCF to kind of replace those teams. They would go. They might even go after Cincinnati. I mean, hell, they go all the way up the Eastern Seaboard, so it's not out of the realm of possibility that Cincinnati couldn't join the ACC. So that would be interesting if that happened to see if the ACC pilfered some of the Big 12 and some of the best of the American, and maybe in some of the best of the Conference USA. Maybe they go get Georgia Southern, give Georgia Tech a natural rival. So
Well, that reminds me. What I've been thinking about on this expansion is different than the 2010 expansion, to where that was all about cable subscriptions and having a large footprint inside the state. So the SEC only wanted, if they had one team in a state, they could charge the whole state the full rate. And then if you didn't have a team in that state, they could charge a little amount. But that's not really with the cord cutting what they're doing now. It's all about how many people can you get with streaming and things like that. And you saw with Texas coming in, that gentleman's agreement has gone kind of by the wayside. With Clemson and Florida State, that would be 2 teams in that state. For both of them, it would go by the wayside. That brings up the logical question. Would you make another run at Georgia Tech? And would you make a run at Louisville? And that would get all the Power 5 games, the extra games that you guys are forced to play that other SEC. This might be that would be the death of the outside Power 5 game, I believe.
it would be. You know, that would be a logical move. You would get all the natural rivals in your conference, especially if you bring Clemson in, you bring Louisville in, you bring Georgia Tech in, and you bring Florida State in. You get all of the in-state rivalries. I think, for at least for the Eastern Division, because you look at Clemson, South Carolina, right? You look at Kentucky, Louisville. You look at Georgia, Georgia Tech, Florida, Florida State. Obviously, you've already got Ole Miss. You already got Ole Miss and Mississippi State. Unfortunately for LSU, they don't have a counterpart that is worthy. I guess you go get Tulane if you really wanted to, but they're not really worthy of a SEC slot.
Yeah,
They were back in 1920, but not anymore. So the only teams that would be left without an in-state rival would be Arkansas, Missouri, and Oklahoma.
Yeah, and like I told you on SEC After Dark, the big winner I think in all this expansion right now is the University of Arkansas. They've struggled to find rivals. Now all of a sudden Texas is coming into the league. You're going to play Oklahoma every year. They've played Oklahoma 14 times in their history. Neighboring states, Arkansas is damn near on the Oklahoma border, and they've played 14 times against the University of Oklahoma.
It's crazy. It's crazy they've been that close and been in completely different conferences and never even played each other, even out of conference. But it's they'll get that chance now. I'm excited for that. I think Arkansas. It's only going to benefit Arkansas, and it's going to benefit some of these smaller teams because they get a bigger footprint. And they get more reputation that they can use with recruits, and so it can only help. Now
Yep.
Vanderbilt's just got to get out of its own way. They can't get out of their own way. They can't even let the conference help them because they're just so stuck in whatever egregious. I mean, they should. Vanderbilt should be the team. Speaking of Beast of the East here, they should be the team that sets the standard for all the smart schools around the country.
Yes, absolutely.
They
I've
should be that team
yeah.
because they're the team with the most resources available to them, and they just completely squander them.
Yeah, I had this thing. Whenever they hired James Franklin, they actually lucked into that hire. But an identity was built, a culture was built, and you saw what Vanderbilt could be. And then after he went to Penn State, all of a sudden Vanderbilt was looking around and they were like, okay, Stanford had success. Let's do what Stanford's doing. And that obviously didn't work with Derek Mason because what works in the Pac 10, Pac 12 is not really going to be counted on to work in the SEC. So my theory is Vanderbilt should have an idea. They should know what they want. They should go get what they want that fits their needs, whether that's a head coach, an offensive coordinator, or a friggin' wide receiver coach. If he can do what you want to do and build your way and establish an identity and recruit the Dickens, Vanderbilt has never signed like a top 100 player.
They did
So
once, I think, with Jawan Williams.
yeah, okay. But you got to find that system, what you're doing, that fits a niche that's a little bit outside of what everybody else is doing. That's going to allow you to recruit at a higher level and find players that fit what you want to do.
The smart school that I'm most impressed with is Northwestern because they do the most with, I don't want to say the least, but like when you look at their Big Ten counterparts, they really don't have the resources. But whatever resources they have, they pump into their system. Right? They just built a new $300 million football facility on the heels of their most recent success. I mean, Pat Fitzgerald has been a fixture in that program. He bleeds purple and black. And they've made improvements to their stadium. I mean, they've really kind of embraced that. Hey, we can be really good academically, and capital all caps, we can have a good athletic program, starting with football. Now Vanderbilt has it with baseball, so I don't know why they don't just buy into
They
all
used to have it in
athletics.
basketball.
Yeah, they fell off the face of the earth in
Yeah.
basketball, and I don't know, like their mojo is so down that I don't even know if they can get it back. I don't know if Stackhouse is the right guy either, but um, they've got to, if they can improve their football stadium from that rink-a-dink erector set high school, glorified high school stadium. There's high school stadiums in Georgia that are nicer than that. I didn't want to say Texas because like half of the state is nicer than Vanderbilt Stadium, but they're making renovations to the athletic facilities. Finally, the McGugin Center. I think they're finally renovating that thing after I
I've
don't
been
know.
embedded there on a signing day with on a James Franklin class.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I remember that.
yeah, moment by moment. I think that was the Robert Kimdichie
Hmm.
year at Ole Miss.
Yeah, so like they get $45 million from the SEC network, so it's not like they're strapped for cash.
Hmm.
So and then they get whatever bowl money is distributed. They get, and God forbid they go to a bowl, they get extra money from that. They get, I mean, they get all kind of stuff. Like there's no excuse for Vanderbilt not to lead the way. But to me, I I think they hired the right guy. I really like what Clark Lee's doing. I really liked what he did at media days, and just listening to him speak outside of that, and just kind of watching some of his moves from afar. I do think he's doing the right thing. I do think Vanderbilt finally found maybe their next James Franklin. He's barking up some trees, trying to get support and try to get money within that program and try to get these higher up administrators to actually do something.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's always a hard road to hoe at Vanderbilt whenever it comes to precious SEC TV dollars, because they will absolutely take that money and invest it into the university, which other schools will not do. There's
yeah,
money for the athletics, self-sustaining for the athletics. Some schools like give money back, but Vanderbilt will actually, okay, we're going to take this off the top, and y'all can have what's left.
yeah. See, it works the other way around with everybody else. Like I guarantee you, at Alabama, they've funded campus buildings through football.
Hmm.
Georgia, I know Georgia has. Georgia has definitely done that. And Georgia used to, with President Adams, used to do a little skimming off the top of athletics and saying, "Here, take the rest." But and that's why Mark Richt had to pay assistants out of his own pocket for bonuses because sometimes that would, that would get in the way. But Vanderbilt, there's just really no excuse. Like, come on, if you invest in your football program, I guarantee you, and you can look at a million different universities, especially some of the private ones. Athletic success will boost enrollment. Look at the University of Miami in the 70s. It was sparsely populated down there in Coral Gables. Nobody wanted to go to school there. It was just this little private school that was too expensive, and it really wasn't that cool. It was kind of uppity. Then all of a sudden in 1984 they win the national championship and enrollment like triples. You think there's
Yeah.
a correlation there? Like people not only want to have good academics, but they want to go to a good environment too. Like I want that whole college experience as a student. Like I want to be able to go to a football game and know that we're going to be competitive. And we're not going to get the crap beat out of us every week, and know that we have a viable product out there, or know that we're working towards that, and know that I could go to a basketball game and it be a great environment, and a raucous crowd, and a fun event to go to, and baseball already is that. Why can't football, basketball be that way? Why can't women's basketball be that way? You know why can't tennis be a fun experience for them? Why can't gymnastics be good? Why can't their athletic department be good? Why? Because they just hired an AD for the first time, and like they had an AD, and then they went on like a 8-year hiatus without an AD, and now they're back in the AD game. So who knows? Maybe they're making improvements, but as you see on the agenda, we've gotten really far away from that agenda so
Yeah,
far. Um,
seriously.
we ADD radio here, but that's okay. We are the Beast of the East, presented by BetOnline.ag. Pinch hitting for Craig Ladd is Steve Willis, the owner of Willis Digital Media. You find him on the Palmcast each and every day. You can also find the two of us, and going to be joined by a third host soon on SEC After Dark. You can see us cheersing our beer. I've essentially, due to a bunch of leftover beer that friends bring over, I've got a variety pack in my fridge. So it's like a grab
Nice.
bag. Like you never know. Like I don't know what I'm going to get night in, night out. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty fun. But so let's get into some. It's camps getting ready to fire up. A lot of these teams are doing like team building competition stuff, like fun, like watermelon pie eating contests, water balloon fights, water gun fights, races. Kirby's trying to jump off the high dive, which Mark Richt has forever cemented the backflip off the high dive. Kirby just jumped, so he's got a ways to go on that. We're in that phase of preseason, so camp is coming soon. So let's talk Tennessee. I wanted to talk. These are three of the most intriguing teams in the Eastern Division, because I think they have a chance. Now, South Carolina and Tennessee are two teams that are rebuilding. Kentucky's a team that could contend and push Georgia and push Missouri and push Florida for the upper echelon of this division. So we'll start with Tennessee. Tennessee is the most intriguing to me because really it's style of play, Steve, that I think is going to separate them from South Carolina. Because with the way they play on offense, you don't really need a bunch of 4 and 5 star talent, right? You just have to have guys that are willing to play fast and make few mistakes. Mississippi State showed that they were actually a viable team late in the season last season, and they were extremely young, inexperienced, brand new quarterback. Came in halfway through the year for KJ Costello, and really just improved week in and week out. And for Tennessee, that's all Josh Heupel needs. The magic number is 6. Get to 6 wins. You're probably coach of the year because that roster is absolutely decimated. I think everyone transferred away. Most notably, you lose both your running backs, Ty Chandler to the Tar Heels and Eric Gray to Oklahoma. So what do you like when you look at this team, Steve? Like what stands out to you? Obviously, the quarterback battle has got to be something that stands out. But when you look at this Tennessee team, what are your expectations? What stands out? What do you notice?
My expectations is they are going to look a little bit like Ole Miss did last year. Defensively, they're going to struggle a bit. Offensively, they're going to be exciting, even if it isn't the finished product. It's not going to be It's not going to look like it will 3 years down the road. This is going to be the introductory install of this, and with Hayden Hooker, the offense could look different. Harrison Bailey, the offense could look different. Milton, the offense could look different. There's three different ways the offense could look because Josh Heupel runs a version of the Baylor system that Kendall Briles does, that Lane Kiffin does. There's a lot of hitches on the outside. It's very quarterback friendly. It's going to be about one-on-one matchups. So they're going to score a ton of points because they're an SEC team and can get SEC athletes. But defensively, I don't know how much they're going to be able to stop who they're playing.
No, they're not. They're going to have to get in shootouts, honestly, and that's kind of what you expect anyway from this team because style of play. They don't have much on defense, and you lose Henry 2-0-2-0 on the defensive side of the ball. It's going to be rough, but they're going to score their fair share of points. It's not going, and that's why it's not going to translate into a ton of wins. Like some of the talent that they do have could get them to 7, possibly 8 wins, but defensively, it's going to be a challenge. It's going to be a challenge, and when you look defensively, when you look at personnel, it's bare. It's real bare, especially the linebacking core. They were hard as hit. 202 going to Bama. Quavarius Crouch, I think I pronounced that right. He's at Michigan State. DeAndre Johnson, he pulled a LeBron and took his talents to South Beach. So you lose those three. That's pretty hard hit there. But they were able to get Jawan Mitchell from Texas, former or a fellow in-state team now. They got Jeremy Banks already. He's their returning linebacker. Listen to this. The team's top returning linebacker comes in with 28 tackles.
Yeah, that's pretty tough.
28 tackles. So that's brutal. But they, man, I can't get over that. But, they're, like Ole Miss. They're sitting there like Ole Miss. They can only go up, right? Mm-hmm. They can only get better. And they probably will. They'll be tough, but they'll be a feast or famine defense. Once they get tired, they'll be hell for the first quarter and a half, and then their defense will get tired, and you'll be able to score at will. That's going to be their problem. So they're going to have to find some balance offensively. They're going to have to find a way to control the ball, sustain some long drives. Don't be quite as explosive offensively, but
there isn't a path to a bowl game not going 4-0 in the non-conference. Looking at their schedule, they play Pitt. They got a home game against Pitt, September 11th. And then they have to sweep South Carolina and Vanderbilt.
Which I think they can do.
They can probably do that. But there's not really a path for them to get to a bowl game without going 4-0 in the non-conference, which makes the seminal game of this season for them that Pittsburgh game on September 11th.
Yeah, so you get Bowling Green, Pitt, then you get Tennessee Tech. Then you're at Florida, which, I mean, we're not sure about Florida, Steve.
Yeah, but the problem is Tennessee can't ever seem to beat Florida. It doesn't matter what they have.
That's true. Then they're at Missouri. That's a tough one. So South Carolina, then home against Ole Miss. Then at Alabama, that's a tough 2-game stretch there. Then October 30th against Open, that's a really hard game. Georgia seemed to struggle with that one some years. Then they're at Kentucky, the grocery bag. That could, depending on where Kentucky is, that could be a tricky game for Kentucky because you never know what kind of state of mind they're going to be in. Then they host Georgia on November 13th, which is just so weird to see Georgia so late in their schedule because that's the week that Georgia usually plays Auburn. So then South Alabama and then Vanderbilt. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So yeah, I mean you're right, but maybe they get an upset here somewhere. Maybe they win the SEC championship game on December 4th. No, just kidding. That ain't happening. So It's a tough road for Tennessee. They're going to struggle to get to 6 wins, and that's okay. Tennessee is
This is a build,
Tennessee.
guys. This
Yeah,
is a build.
if Tennessee gets 5 or 6 wins, that is a big deal because this roster is a 3-win at best roster.
Yeah, with name one time transfer coming in, name, image, and likeness, and the NCAA troubles that they got into last year, because we still have to deal with that. Maybe the NCAA is going to implode and not exist.
Yeah,
But
they'll probably get lucky on that.
yeah, handing out cash in McDonald's bags, that's a pretty serious allegation. So, but they lost tons of players off the team that went there, I guess, for Jeremy Pruitt. I don't
Yeah,
know why. Jeremy Pruitt's a guy you'd go to if he was coaching a football team in 1996, but not in 2020. And you just have
I
a yeah, you just have a system problem building up on top of everything else, where you're going to be asked to do something different than you recruit it to be able to do.
exactly, and I think Heupel will be able to do that.
Mm.
Unfortunately, he came in late and he's still playing catch up. But speaking of recruiting, by the way, I think Harrison Bailey should win the quarterback job. Probably won't, but I think he should. But speaking of recruiting, Steve, they got a commitment, their highest rated commitment from the 2022 class, according to 24/7. He is the number 107th prospect in the country, offensive lineman Addison Nichols from Norcross, Georgia. He is a Tennessee commit, so that is a big deal. They got an offensive lineman. They're building up front, so I'm
Is
that's
Norcross near
exciting.
Atlanta?
It is it's Metro Atlanta. It is in Gwinnett County.
Okay. Tennessee has never been good when they haven't done extremely well in Atlanta. So that will be a Nostradamus like projection. If they're doing well in the Atlanta area, you will see Tennessee become back. Until they can get good at that again, they're going to struggle.
Well, the last time they were really good in Atlanta recruiting, they had Rodney Gardner on staff.
Mm.
Guess who's on staff?
Oh, is Rodney Gardner in Tennessee?
He is back in
Okay.
Knoxville. So, no surprise that he comes back and they get a big offensive lineman from Norcross. So, there you go. And there was another prospect um, that is now back on their radar at defensive back. He's a corner. He decommitted from Kentucky, Jeremiah Caldwell. He is actually a Michigan prospect, but he was committed to Kentucky. He is now decommitted. Respect my decision, and he's back in it. And Tennessee is looking. They're looking really good in this. They're looking really good for in the running for this kid, Jeremiah Caldwell. So some things are, and then they get Walter Nolan. So, some big things are happening, and really lately, quite literally, big things are happening for Tennessee recruiting. So you can already see that they're not a team that's just going to lie around in the weeds. They're making moves, and that's good for Heupel. And I think that's promising. Recruits are going to see, okay, well, Walter Nolan's going there, so there's got to be something good about Tennessee. Yeah, they suck right now on the field, but hey, if I come, you come, we can make a difference. And there you go. So, but that's Tennessee. I think they're interesting. They are a team that is definitely on the rise. There's some good things happening there. As a Georgia fan, I hate it, but as an SEC fan, I like it, and I know a lot of my friends would like it as well.
The
So,
SEC is absolutely better when Tennessee is good at football. Period.
yes. So Tennessee quit being a softball school and join the sport of football. So, well, what about Steve Spurrier and? Oh wait, no, he's not there anymore. So what about the Gamecocks?
I'm very curious to know what they're going to look like, because they're the team that fell into the trap of going from the spread to the ground and pound old man football, and now what are they going to do? You've transformed the basically the roster over last year. You're transforming again this year. what is that going to look like? It's gotten so many coaches fired over the years. And the same thing happened to Will Muschamp at South Carolina. Is just the changeover goings like, oh, Tuberville at Auburn did the same thing. Gene Chizik at Auburn did the same thing. You either go to a spread to a power scheme or a power scheme to a spread as almost like an emergency. It's like, hey, football's changing. We need to change, but we don't have the guys to do it. And all of a sudden you throw a 3-8 up on the board and it ends up costing you your job. Now, Shane Beamer, I don't, he's not in any danger of that. But the production is in danger of mirroring that. Luke Doty is a great quarterback. He's a great runner. I don't know what he is throwing the football. Whenever he steps on there, are they going to run a similar system to what was ran at Oklahoma, or are they going to do something similar to what Mike Bobo did last year? I just don't know. There's so many question marks with this team. The only thing I know for sure is they're recruiting really, really well.
Yeah, that's the thing you can point to, and that's something that Shane Beamer's been really good at. Like everywhere he's been a pretty good recruiter. So you got to think that they're coming back soon. This is not the year for them though. Their roster looks like doo doo, right? Outside of Kevin Harris and maybe Nick Muse, they got nothing, man. They got a Georgia Tech transfer, Marion Brown, Xavier Leggett, uh, John Leggett's brother.
Yeah.
They
Shout
they
out,
shout out to John Leggett. Who's going to be the quarterback, right? Luke Doty,
John.
or is it going to be Colton? I don't even know how to pronounce his last name.
Gauthier.
Yeah.
One thing for certain, nobody knows. He was picked out with Luke Altmaier as one of the two principals to be recruited by the Ole Miss staff. So if Lane Kiffin was looking at him, the kid can play. But he is going to be a true freshman. And like I said, show me the offense and what they're doing, and I'll tell you if he's going to be able to be successful.
Yeah. Now they're a team you want to get early because they still got a bunch of 2-8 in them right now, and their best weapon is now in the NFL, Shi Smith. All their best defenders are in the NFL. One of which got picked early in the first round by I think Denver. Was it Denver? I can't remember. It was like late top 10. So this team, yeah, you're right. I have no idea what they're going to do. And I also, when I watched South Carolina play on a couple of occasions, the Vanderbilt South Carolina game might have been the most pitiful looking football game all around on both sides that I've ever seen, ever. It was pitiful to watch. South Carolina, Georgia, pitiful to watch. Like, it was like if Alabama went in to the worst Division III school in America and played a game. Like, that's what it looked like. That's how non-competitive South Carolina was in that game. It was brutal to watch. Like, that team had just shut it down. That team quit. And it's just they quit well before Bobo took over as interim coach. They were just done. But Shane Beamer, Steve, we weren't doing shows back then, but I remember when Shane Beamer got hired, I kind of scratched my head because there was a lot of candidates out there that I thought was a better fit. And there was one I thought in their own state that was a better fit up at Coastal Carolina and Jamie Chadwell. And they go after Shane Beamer, and I thought it was a reach. What were your initial thoughts when Shane Beamer got the job?
It was them trying to save money on a coach. They didn't want to get it. They didn't have the money to get into the spending war because of all the COVID stuff and everything going on. So they settled on the hire with who they could get. I absolutely agree with Jamie Chadwell. That offense is just niche enough to where you can recruit a different type of player. You're not going to be recruiting some of the same stuff, and you have a chance just to build and really just all kinds of firepower, which they're doing up at Coastal right now. But I don't know why. I can't remember his name. The coach at Louisiana. I don't know why he's not at South Carolina right now.
Billy Napier.
Yeah, I don't know why Billy Napier is still in Louisiana whenever he could be in Columbia, South Carolina, basically coaching a SEC team, other than the fact that South Carolina didn't have the money to get him.
Is he waiting on Bama?
Maybe, maybe
Do you
he's
think?
got. I know he's got a big game coming up. I think against Texas week 1.
Yeah. God, what if they beat Texas? That'd be hilarious.
There's a chance they could beat Texas. It's year
They
1 of a system switch. There's crazy stuff can happen in the first game.
well, they beat Iowa State.
Hmm.
If
It's a
you,
good
if you
team.
remember. It is a good team, well coached. Like I said, they should. That guy should not be there right now.
Yeah, he
So,
should be in the SEC right now.
but Shane Beamer did kill it at media days. So
Hmm.
I was impressed with that. He does have He does have charisma. I was going to say charismatic, but not say the attic part of it. Like halfway through.
Yeah.
But he has good pedigree. Obviously, his dad is the father of Virginia Tech football, and so I mean he's got that going for him. So I don't know. You have a defense that has a lot of upside. Um, you
I
don't
don't
know.
think
You don't
Shane
really know.
Beamer's ever been a coordinator.
No, he has. He's been a special teams coordinator, I think, once. But like, this is the ultimate. Like, you have no clue. Like, you could throw a dart. Like, if you asked even hell, I bet if you asked Shane Beamer, he would throw a dart at the board and say, like, because he wouldn't know. He would say, "Who's your best unit?" He'd just throw a dart at the board and say, "Okay, it's linebackers today." Okay, maybe I'm okay. And then the next day he throws the dartboard at tight ends because he just couldn't hit the same spot on the dartboard. We don't know what they got because it's a bunch of no-name guys, like a bunch of transfers, a bunch of guys that didn't really play much last year. So I don't know. I don't know what's going on with this group, and I don't know what's going on with this team. It's hard to tell. I just know, well, I just think that because they have quarterback issues right now, it's unsettled. That my preseason prediction for them, this is going to be a tough year for South Carolina, but they're going to be one of those teams that gets drastically better year 2. They're going to finish dead last in the SEC East to me
Well,
because at
real
this
quick, they
moment
go to East Carolina.
they do go to East Carolina.
Road
That's road game.
road game.
Road game. So their athletic director said, "Hey, we're an SEC team. We will travel to you, Group of 5." I'm surprised they're playing at home against Eastern Illinois. I'm surprised they didn't set that road trip up.
Seriously.
Um,
I look at their schedule and it looks like 4-8. It just screams 4-8.
yeah, and they play A&M. That's going to be a scary game. Clemson's gonna, Clemson's gonna destroy it. Like, listen to this schedule to close the season: Florida, at Missouri, Auburn, Clemson. At least 3 of those are at home. But my God, that's brutal.
That's not a good way to end with any semblance of momentum.
Yeah, that's a lot of negative. Like that last game against Clemson is going to be the worst too. You're going to come off a Auburn team who's going to be red hot at that point on November 20th. Like that's going to be a bad one. Then you go right into Clemson, who, we know who Clemson is right now.
Yeah.
So things not looking great for South Carolina. But lastly, before we wrap this thing, Kentucky is a team. We had Vinny Hardy on the Believe in Georgia Dogs podcast, and Kentucky is a team that I really like a lot now because they looked in the rule book and they saw where you are allowed. Get this, you were allowed to throw a forward pass. So Kentucky discovered that finally.
Yeah, their new offensive coordinator, Cohen, I think is his last name.
Yeah, Cohen.
He's from the LA Rams school, the Sean McVay school. He's going to do a lot of bootlegs and action off the running backs and stuff that the pro players have plenty of time to drill. I don't know if college players have enough time to do that. So it might look a little bit differently. I know they have big strong arm guy from Penn State and another Kentucky
Will Levis.
Will Levis.
Yeah, Will Levis.
And some guy from Kentucky that is, I forget his name right off the head, that is one of the saviors of Kentucky football, like Tim Couch and Jarrett Lorenzen and all them before them that's been recruited there. It'll be interesting to see who wins that job. And Joey Gatewood, of course, which is the Auburn transfer. And this offense has changed in a way that it might have changed out of his control completely.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's a pretty good quarterback lineup there. I think it fits what Cohen wants to do, which is predicated on the run. They have a great the biggest strength for Kentucky is their O line, so they're going to be able to run the ball a little bit. They have Chris Rodriguez and Cavassier Smoke, which
Nice name.
might be one of the coolest names in the league. They're going to have to figure out the wide receiver position, but I mean, for the last 3 years, they've had to figure out the wide receiver position outside of Lynn Bowden. But for Kentucky, damn, my nose is itching like crazy. The loss of Terry Wilson. I think Terry Wilson transferring to New Mexico, on a side note, might be the most perfect place he could go because they run triple option, like gun triple option there. And that might be the most perfect place for him to go. That's a sidebar conversation, but the O line will be good. They'll get plenty of protection. They'll be able to run the ball, so play action will be good. The bootleg game will be good. Their defense will be adequate enough, and Mark Stoops, I was about to say Bob, Mark Stoops is good enough at scheming defensively that he's going to get those guys playing hard and in the right place. So I'm excited about what Liam Cohen can do. I've heard nothing but good things. Obviously, Sean McVay you could say it's a bit of a political move, in a sports context type of thing, but he did go out of his way, I feel like, to compliment Liam Cohen. So that's got to, usually NFL coaches don't speak up on their assistants leaving. Usually they have some canned answer like, yeah, he's good. He'll be a great fit for their program and stuff like that. But, McVay was like gushing over him and, saying that, it's really good. And
yeah, but when the camera's on and McVay's talking, he's going to put on a little bit of a show.
Yeah, and some of that's a little showmanship. Yeah,
Yeah.
I do agree with you there. So, but yeah, I mean, you look at this team, they've got some pieces. They've got some pretty nice pieces. And I'm not saying they're gonna win the East this year or anything like that. At one point, I had them finishing second. I may stand by that. I may just by default have Florida finishing second. You'll have to find out when we do our Eastern Conference standings predictions on Beast of the East. So it's a surprise, but
You know what we need to do sometime in August, and this is a little bit of all the channel stuff run, is just get all the hosts on one thing. I think Jake Thomas had this idea, and just do a roundtable about previewing the SEC sometime around like August 17th or something. And you just have 5 or 6 people on the screen, and you're going back and forth just talking ball. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
That would be awesome. We need to make that happen.
Yeah. I think that'd be a good idea.
Let's do it for SEC After Dark.
Yeah, it would have to be an SEC After Dark because I'm not going to step on the Beast of the East, or the Best of the West. So it would have to be the SEC After Dark, and we can just have everybody in. Once by then, maybe Jeb will be moved in. You guys will get to meet Jeb Beecham, and we can talk a little SEC football, and it should be a lot of fun, honestly.
And we will truly be for the fan, by the fan, and of the fan. Is that what your Palmcast motto is?
Yes.
Did I get that right? So
yeah, I changed the intro. Did you see that?
I did. Nice.
Yeah.
You're making
that
some
was on the Palmcast. Everybody that's listening to this.
Yeah, Palmcast. So if you listen to the Palmcast regularly, you should come over here and you should be a well-rounded SEC fan. Like I feel like all SEC fans should be well-rounded. I know everyone has their niche, but like I would implore that everyone, because honestly, I say that I hate Tennessee. I say that I hate Florida, but if you give me a chance to watch Florida, Tennessee versus watching like Ohio State and Michigan State, I mean,
heck, say Ohio State and Michigan.
Yeah, Ohio State, Michigan, or the Red River. Well, the Red River Shootout will soon be an SEC
Yeah,
game. So I better
that's
be
getting a
careful on that.
rebrand.
I know. That's getting a rebrand. So that's obviously they realize, man, we're not as good as the SEC product. Like I will watch an SEC game. I don't care who it is. Even if it's Florida, I will watch Florida. Even if it's for the sole purpose of making fun of Florida. Sorry, Florida fans. That's just the way it is. Um, I will do it. Like I appreciate SEC football. So
Hmm.
I think you should be well rounded as an SEC fan. I'm not saying you should go and buy, if you're an Ole Miss fan, go buy a Mississippi State hat. And I'm not going out of my way to listen to like niche podcasts like niche podcasts like the Florida Gators podcast or South Carolina specific. But if there's like an overall SEC show,
Hmm.
kind of like what we do with SEC After Dark, or kind of like this show, or Best of the West, if you're in case you're listening, taking notes, I would definitely jump on that stuff, right? Because I love hearing stories. I love hearing about and breaking down SEC football, and I think it's obviously it's the best. It's for the best. It's of the best, and we should talk about the best. And you should want to be the best. And if you want to be the best, you got to be in this conference. You got to be a fan of this conference. So, Ole Miss fans that are listening, don't be afraid to check us out on SEC After Dark. Don't be afraid to check out, even if it's just for a minute. Just subscribe to my channel, Believe in Dogs.
Yeah,
Even if you don't want to listen, I don't care if you want to listen.
I've
Just
subscribed to
subscribe.
that channel.
You have, Steve, and
Hmm.
I've subscribed to the Palmcast,
Hmm.
and I listen to the Palmcast every day. And I'm not an Ole Miss hater, but I wouldn't consider myself an Ole Miss fan by any stretch either. But I like a lot of things that Ole Miss does. I
Hmm.
learned a lot about Lane Kiffin's style by doing boot camp. So, boot camp the offense, one of the original Palmcast shows. Just so you know. So I think you should subscribe. I think you should do it. Pull the trigger, right? So
Yeah, and I think we have in our little circle doing this right now. We have three high school coaches. We have two fans,
wait, who else is high
and
school coaches?
isn't Craig a former high school coach?
He's not a coach. He's like he's dabbled a little bit. He's been more of like a reporter, statistician,
Okay,
spotter,
okay.
radio guy. Yeah.
So Kevin Bohannon is the other high school coach,
Where does he coach?
over in Arkansas somewhere. I believe. I don't know the
Is,
exact high school. Then
is
we
he
have me, who me and you, we did Rivals national media, and we worked the admin. Good grief,
yeah.
you have a nice, well balanced thing with high school coach, Rivals, and working admin at the school. That's pretty good. And then you
That's what
have
I
true
do, man.
fans that just want to be a part of this. So it's really cool. It's a nice, well-rounded view of several perspectives. I mean, we're talking about Tennessee, South Carolina, and Kentucky tonight. I mean, you haven't paid attention to that. Now you can learn a little bit about these guys and get ready for the football season, because this football season is going to be fun. It just
It's gonna
is.
be crazy.
Yeah. I mean, from all the way down, like, it's not this season. It's going to come up probably maybe next season or the one after. That first Texas A&M game is that'll probably be the second or third most want to watch games of the year for me, and I'm an Ole Miss fan.
Hmm.
I mean, it's
Absolutely,
going to be
man.
nuts.
That's definitely going to be CBS. That might be one of those like CBS doesn't have the SEC anymore, do they? No more Vern Lundquist going, wow, Tim Tebow, and Gary going, Tebow's not playing today. We're doing A&M versus Ole Miss. Oh no. So yeah, I mean, and my Believe in Georgia Dog show is, another high school coach down in
Mhm.
South Georgia. So we bring that perspective. And he's a former player too. So, we balance each other out. We were both inside of the Butts Mirror building in Athens. I was a staffer. He was a player. We both coach high school football, so our parallels are uncanny. Craig and I worked together at Hillwood. He ran stats for us, and he was kind of our, you know, analytics guy. I was up in the booth with him, and I would always look over and see, kind of who's doing what, and tendencies and things like that. He kept pretty good stats. I wish he'd come back. And then you and I we sat this close at rivals.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, we were shoulder buddies, I guess you should say. And that was a lot of fun. It was like I wish people could see our setups, man. It was crazy. We each had TVs with direct TV at our desk, and we just watch. And we'd have like at one point, we'd have, and this was before soccer was cool in America, but we'd have like each of us would have a soccer game on at our desk, and it would be a different one, and we'd root for different teams. You're a Spurs fan. I latched on to Everton due to Tim Howard, but that's kind of waning now. I think I might latch on to Chelsea because Christian Pulisic. Tom was a Arsenal fan,
Poor
and
Tom.
John was a fan of just whoever would piss you or me off,
Yeah,
and
that was pretty great.
and so we had a good dynamic there, and Chris Childers, who is now of SiriusXM fame, we'd be messing with each other, talking smack, in the same room, and you know all kind of stuff, all kind of shenanigans that you could think of, any scenario that you could think of. When you talk about a fun experience, that was the rivalry we had with the pit crew, the battles at the ping pong table, battles on the golf course,
Battles on the
all kind of
foosball
stuff.
table. Yeah.
Foosball table, man, it was crazy, and the 2 hour lunches. Hey, Corey, finish all your prospects before lunch so we can go on a 2 hour excursion, and we did. So
Speaking of this, what do you think of On Three Sports?
it's intriguing. Jake Roos of UGA Sports jumped over. Justin Hokinson jumped over to the Auburn site. Shannon is obviously calling on some old reliables from the Rivals Network, so it can only work from there.
Yeah,
I haven't
Huguenon's
really
over there.
cruised around on it, huh?
Huguenon's over there.
Huguenin, yeah. Oh,
Hmm.
Huguenin. Oh, wow, that's a name I haven't heard in a long time.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting, man. I haven't really ventured and looked at all of their content, but the people they're assembling is outstanding.
Yeah, it's kind of impressive. I just think this market has shown over and over that only two major services will be sustained. There's only an audience for two services. So whenever a third one comes in, you're obviously looking to try and figure out which one
So who
is the
dies?
gazelle with the lame leg
Yeah,
that's going to pull a scout from 5 years ago.
I,
And
and things I've heard about Rivals is that they might be that gazelle.
it's possible. I think 24/7, they built that up. We used to make jokes about it all the time, but they built up a heck of a product, and they became they became the 300-pound gorilla. And Rivals spent so much time just trying to survive that now, I mean, it's an untenable position for somebody. There's a chance Rivals could fall down, and that makes me sad because Rivals was kind of the OG when it comes to recruiting.
Well,
But
yeah, when they were
yeah,
independently owned, obviously Shannon Terry built that thing and sold
mhm.
it to Yahoo, and Yahoo just took it and fumbled it big time.
Yeah, and I
They
think
let
it's at
go of
Verizon now.
they let go of so much talent over there, and just brought in people like when the analysts went away from being football people
Hmm.
to journalists. That's when it started going downhill. Now Mike Farrell's one of my favorite people, but like they just it's got to be frustrating because now he's not a recruiting analyst anymore. He's a national contributor, so he covers all different kind of sports, which is definitely not well, it's his strong suit because he's really good, but definitely not where he wants to be. He's the guy. He's the goat of high school recruiting, and for them to kind of take that away from him and kind of reorganize, they stripped it down. I remember at one point, right when we were there, they stripped it down to almost like single digit people before
Yeah,
they built, and then they built it back up to about 50, and now it's going back down again. And I haven't heard anything from there. They lost this partnership deal with Under Armour, had to settle for Adidas, which Adidas is a good company, but it's not Under Armour. They lost the Army game. Probably, well, they lost Under Armour game too. The 5-star challenge isn't what it used to be. The Rivals
Yeah.
Camp Series isn't what it used to be. And the leadership over there has just and and I don't think it's at the fault of the people that are in charge at the Rivals level. I think it's at the fault of the people who are in charge at the Yahoo level. And if Yahoo just needs to
Verizon.
sell it, Verizon, I don't
Yeah.
know. I can't
Yeah.
keep up shit.
Verizon
Um,
owns it now.
yeah, so Verizon, whoever owns it, they've that's like what 12 CEOs since we were there. It's crazy, and we have a new CEO, and then 3 months later we have another new CEO, and we have another new Yahoo manager. I mean, we probably are our contact list of Yahoo managers is probably outstanding, astonishingly long. And poor Greg Latke, that dude, they're overworking him, man.
Well, they've
Overworked
been
and
overworking
underpaid.
him for 5 or 6 years at this point.
Yeah, it's over. When they let me go, it was. I mean, he was already overworked, and then they let me go. I was helping him out a little bit, and man, it's crazy. So I'm afraid. I'm afraid Rivals is that gazelle, which kind of sucks because I have a free sub to UGA Sports. But some of these team sites are awesome, right?
Well,
Like Ole Miss.
the team sites are going to usually find homes
Yeah,
because that's just the way it works. Whenever Scout went down, the Ole Miss Spirit went over to 247, and they just merged those two staffs.
yeah,
Because that brand is going to be able to come around because that's what you want. But nationally, that's going to be a problem. That's where it's going to affect things. Like
yeah.
way back when Eric Winter was in charge of Rivals,
Shout out to Eric.
yeah, he felt like the Orlando Under Armour game was where we needed to be. So he threw away the Army All American game. 247 swooped that up and made it their own, which is good for them. But Under Armour, it wasn't really the same type of partnership. We were just kind of in there like everybody else. It was kind of like a bullpen scenario. And after a while, that equal was able to spread out, and 24/7 had their thing and became the dominant force in recruiting. And a lot of that was because of that move for us to give up the Army game and go to Orlando because honestly, he liked to go to Orlando.
Hmm. He didn't like going to San Antonio. San Antonio's a lot of fun. I loved going to those Army Bowls. I remember
Yeah.
that the my first year that I went was the last year that we had all access. Like that was our game, and we had first rights to it. And now we don't. Now it's
Mm,
now it's 24/7, and it's a shame. Like I remember seeing Derrick Henry. That was that year.
okay.
Derrick Henry up close was the biggest human being, one of the biggest human beings that wasn't an offensive lineman that I'd ever seen. He was high school age, and he was enormous. I so it was that was a lot of fun. That was a great game. That was a great experience. Just everything that we were able to do from the combine to the practices, being up close and personal in the practices, and being able to kind of have free reign to do what we wanted. There was awesome. Being able to have free reign at the game, walk around on the sidelines, get random shots, be on the field, be in the mix was unbelievable. And
Yeah.
to lose all of that is just detrimental. And for what? A deal that we thought we had with Under Armour.
Yeah.
Um, and people make mistakes, and people, I guarantee you, Eric probably didn't realize that this Under Armour thing wasn't going to go quite the way he thought it was going to. So, who knows? But
Yeah. And
what
the
what I
shoes
do
suck,
know,
by the way.
what I do know is that if Rivals ever got the right investor, they still have the name recognition that they could bounce right on back, and they could overtake both of these if they had the right person. So, Steve, what you need to do, you need to go knock over a bank. You need to buy Rivals, and you and I will take over. We'll get
Okay.
the band back together, and we'll have a pit crew with crystal eating contest and push-up contest and stuff, foosball table, all that good stuff. So
We'll go get Broom out of the closet doing pharmacy stuff.
that's right. Oh,
Yeah.
I forgot. Broom.
What was the name of the girl that used to do the Rivals Minute?
It was Ashley Russell.
Ashley Russell. Yeah.
Yeah.
Every now and then I'd fill in for you doing the Yahoo Sports Minute and all that. It,
Oh God,
that
yeah.
was really the beginning of what became this podcast thing because like Shannon Terry, one of his big things is the multimedia brand. So we would do the Yahoo Sports Minute and the Rivals Minute now. Then it morphed into at 24/7 the thing that Josh Pate is doing with Late Kick, and now they're setting up on three like an interview type
Mhm.
situation with the studio, and I'm kind of really curious of what they're going to develop there.
Yeah, it can only be, obviously it's the same model. Sanitary knows what works, knows what consumers want, and it sounds like he's up on the trends. Like everybody wants this.
Mm-hmm.
So, what if we become the Beast of the East presented by On Three?
I'll take it. Do it.
Take it. Let's go, Shannon. If you're
Yeah.
listening, come on.
Yeah.
We played flag football together for a minute in
Yeah.
the
We're
Rivals
here.
Flag Football League, right? So
Yeah, I did it with a brain tumor. Man, come on.
you did.
Mm.
Damn right you did. So, but that honestly, Steve, that's a good stopping point for us. Obviously we covered the big three down there, but this show was, it's a lot of fun to just kind of sit back and just chat and reminisce and do, do a lot of this stuff. I think it's fun, especially this time of year where like the storylines are kind of scarce.
Mm.
Um, but it's going to be a fun season. It's going to be interesting to see, and of course, anytime we can incorporate old stories from the rivals.com days, that's always amazing. So, I got one last story actually. Have you ever heard of stacking plates as being offensive?
Stacking plates as being
Yeah, like
offensive.
when you're done eating at a restaurant and like you stack the plates in the middle to hand to the waiter.
Yeah. Okay.
Ha- Have you ever thought of that as being in all the
No.
cotil in all the cotillion classes that you've taken? Has that ever been offended? Has that ever been
No.
offending somebody or
Not even a
offensive or
little bit.
God, I can't talk. The English language is escaping me today. So apparently it is.
Okay. Tell. Give me
Yeah.
the
So,
explanation.
all right, we're in Baltimore, and we're at Morton Steakhouse, and I won't throw out her name. She's pretty cool, other than this moment where I was just baffled. But it's somebody who left for the NFL, and she is a content manager, producer, or something like that over for NFL. But we're at Morton Steakhouse. We're having our infamous Eric Winter team dinners after the night after
That
the
would
event.
probably cost $4,000. The man went just through crazy amounts of money. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we're having one of those team dinners, right? And it wasn't offensive that Josh Himholt got me to gnaw the bone of a bone-in ribeye, like gnaw the meat off the bone,
Right.
like after I cut most of it off. That did not offend her, right? That Josh Himholt and I ate off the bone, right? What offended her was I stacked the plates and I handed them to the waiter. And she looked at me like I had just. She looked at me with such disgust. And I was like, I kind of looked at her. She's like, ugh. I was like, what did I do? Are you serious right now? I guess. You're stacking plates? Like, yeah, I was handing them to the waiter so he could take them. That's, you just don't get it. It's just so rude. Rude? I was flabbergasted, perplexed, whatever you want to say.
Different strokes, man. Different
Yep,
strokes.
yep, yep. That's Bel Air for you. So anyway, I digest, but that's gonna do it, man. We are the Beast of the East podcast. Filling in for Craig Ladd is Steve Willis of the Palmcast and of SEC After Dark. We're gonna see you with a beer in hand on Wednesday night. But you can, in the meantime, listen to this show. Find us anywhere you find your podcast. Uh, Google, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever. I can't list them all because I'd be here all daggum night.
Mm-hmm.
You find us right here on YouTube. You can find my other shows also on the same channel, Believe in Dogs, my main show, and these two shows are linked as well. So go to Believe in Dogs channel. You can find all of the shows that I appear on. You can find me on Tuesday nights. So tomorrow night, Illegal Motion. We're not streaming live yet, but we probably should be. So you can find me there. I cover the entire country. And then, of course, cheers and beers with my man Steve over here on Wednesday nights, and then Thursday nights doing the Believe in Georgia Dogs thing. So um, I'm everywhere, man. But this is the Beast of the East. We are on the Believe Podcast Network. We are also coming to you live on the video stream via Willis Digital Media, home of the Pomcast. We are presented by betonline.ag. We're also presented by uh, Kenny Salas and the hometown team, 615.com. Keller Williams Realty, they will get you set up in Wilson County here in Tennessee, maybe even Greater Nashville if you ask them. But they are good; they're really good. They'll get you in a house that you want. So, for Steve, I'm Corey. This is the Beast of the East, and we'll see you back here next week. So long, and see you later. Goodbye. We out.